Well, this has to be the warmest day in, I don't know, maybe a month. And it's not that hot. I think it's only 90 degrees. It's been a really mild summer. I've said that a lot. Surely didn't need the air conditioner this year, which of course I can't convince anybody that. You gotta have an air conditioner. You'll die without an air conditioner. Nope, still alive. So as you know, I've been doing a comparison between living off-grid / self-sustaining lifestyle and prepping / stockpiling lifestyle. I think most of my viewers will agree that living off-grid in an SHTF situation is a better idea. Well, first of all, my definition of SHTF means it's long-term. It's going to be 6 years minimum. We talked about the Great Depression. The Great Depression lasted, I think, a decade. So that's an SHTF that prepping isn't going to help you with. With prepping, you're going to run out of food. You're going to run out of stockpile. And so a lot of people will say, well, I'll start gardening. Well, gardening is not going to sustain you. If you look at the Depression, most people were raising livestock back then. I mean, granted, they raised gardens, but you got to have meat. Oh no, we can live off beans. Well, beans are carbohydrates. And the nation is absolutely sickly because of carbohydrates. Everything I read shows that carbohydrates is the reason we have an obesity problem and a diabetic problem. You got to get off the carbohydrates. Eat meat. Beans and rice is just not going to do it. Potatoes. And I know people will argue, and that's fine if you want to argue, but it's what's making the country sick. We weren't sick, and we had worse health care 50, 60 years ago, but we are sick now and we got better health care. Apparently, that's what they tell me. So what's changed? We're eating processed garbage. I really think that you should raise livestock, chickens, rabbits, ducks, something, so you can maintain yourself during an SHTF. But there are those who just refuse to believe that either they can do it or that living off-grid or self-sustaining isn't the way to go, or I don't know. They're constantly arguing, I think, just to be arguing. Because I think what it is, well, a couple things. One, they think it's too hard. It's easier to stockpile and just go to the grocery store and buy a bunch of stuff than it is to live off-grid. Off-grid living, once you're established, is not that hard. Carolyn and I were just talking about that today. She was scrolling around on her phone. Granted, in an SHTF, you wouldn't have a phone, but we have our phone, and that's the only form of entertainment we have is our phones. I said, in comparison to have to go and get a job, this is a breeze. I mean, of course, we got to downside our lives. Now, you cannot be talking about a huge house. Our house is just under 200 square feet. And we are still happy in a house under 200 square feet, minimalistic lifestyle. And I guess there's just a lot of people that can't imagine not being able to, for lack of a better word, be lazy. You know, you got to have your freezer and you got to have your refrigerator and you got to have a bunch of stuff. But that also means you have to have a job. And so they make excuses as to why they can't do it instead of looking at it and saying, well, I wonder if living off-grid is cheaper, because it is cheaper. I mean, it's absolutely a ton cheaper. Obviously, you have the obvious reasons it's cheaper. You don't have an electric bill, you don't have a water bill, you don't have a sewer bill. But we also don't have to go get groceries as much. And, you know, taking care of the chickens just isn't that big of a job. Now, the other thing, one of the other things we identified was a little bit different than living on grid, but again, we don't have a job, is Carolyn does laundry by hand in 2 sinks. That being said, we could run a wash machine. She doesn't want to. I've asked her many times, do you want a wash machine? She always says no. You can buy these little apartment-sized wash machines. I mean, they're just tiny. We could hook it up and she'd be able to do laundry. She just doesn't want to. Why waste the money if we don't have to? She doesn't want to. If she likes going out there for the exercise of washing the laundry, that's fine. So, I mean, even if we decided that we wanted a wash machine, we could do it. The other thing that's a little bit more difficult than a normal lifestyle is the way we have our water set up. You might be able to set it up differently so it's easier for you. But I have to go out about every 4 days I start the generator up, I pump water from the well into an IBC tank. But really, I mean, that's just not that difficult in comparison to going to get a job. The other thing is in my mind, prepping is extremely expensive when you're stockpiling. You're constantly buying. For every type of scenario you can think of, you're buying something. Specifically food. And the other day, I broke it down. I tried to give it somewhat of a half-hearted analysis. And I came up with about $100,000 is what it would cost you to stockpile 6 years worth of food. You'd have to buy a building. It would have to be temperature controlled. You'd have to figure out how to control the temperature after the grid went down, because you wouldn't have electric to run an air conditioner or a heater. I suppose you could do wood heat. So then you would also have to build a building, and we was talking about a Morton building. You'd have to go out and buy all the food, and I broke it all down. So I came up with roughly $100,000. That's probably conservative. The building may cost more than that. You would have to have a warehouse-sized building to store that much food. Whereas our chickens produce eggs every day, and we eat eggs every day, and we eat a pound of meat every day. And we're doing great. You know, people say, well, you're not getting enough calories. In my mind, I don't know this scientifically, meat provides more nutrition per calorie, I would think, or more energy or more whatever you need, than carbohydrates. I mean, you're getting tons of carbohydrates and sugars. That's probably what they did the study on. So then they say you need 2,000 calories eating carbohydrates. But did they mention meat? How many calories do you need with meat? Because I'm not losing a lot of weight. I'm getting more fit. Then you got the firewood, I would think, is another thing that is a little bit more difficult. But again, we live in a tiny house, and within 2 summers, I had enough firewood to last 15 years. Then all I need to replace it each year is about 3 truckloads. So I go out and get free firewood. Now, of course, I got all this here that I could cut down if I needed to, and this would last me the rest of my life. What's on this property here? I don't want to cut it down, so that's why we go out and get free firewood. You know, people cut down their trees and say, hey, got firewood here, so you go and pick it up. In my mind, this is just the better lifestyle, and it doesn't take that much work. Not any more work than it would having to work 40, 60 hours a week to stockpile $100,000 in food. And that's just food. Whatever else you need to stockpile, I don't know what else you would need to stockpile. And in the end, in order to maintain that building that I was talking about, you still have to have firewood for the winter after SHTF, and you would have to have a massive amount of solar panels so you could actually keep it somewhat controlled in temperature. You'd have to keep out all the rodents and, you know, all the things that are going to destroy your stockpile. So me, I go and get, what, 6, 8 eggs a day. I eat them, and then I go out and get some more. I don't have to stockpile anything, and I don't have to worry about wasting the food. Now, we do have some canned food. As any old timer would tell you, you got to preserve what you produce. So we can our food. Again, not that hard. I enjoy canning. It's a lot of fun. But they always make excuses. So today, I was told, stop ragging on us. Some of us just can't do what you're doing. It's going to take us time to get done what you have done. Well, no, I did everything I needed to do, including building the house, under a year. So it didn't take a lot of time. You just got to get motivated to do it. Instead of sitting around saying, oh, that's going to take forever. You know, the house took 5 months, and it was just me building it by myself. I'm sure if I had help, I could have gotten it done a lot faster. You can always buy one of those sheds from Home Depot, and then you just saved yourself 5 months. And it would cost about the same as what we spent building it. Buying the property, $4,200. Again, it's not a huge amount of money. My thinking is if you sold your house right now, I'm not ragging on you, I'm just saying if you sold your house right now, you could buy a piece of property. Yes, property prices may be going up. Carolyn is not seeing it. She still sees property around here for a reasonable price. So I would say within $10,000 to $15,000, you could have yourself a piece of property, solar panels, wood stove, all you need, and then just go out and cut your firewood, and you'll be set. Now, finding yourself a water source, we were looking for property that had a well. Again, we found 2 pieces of property that had a well, both under $10,000. And then you always get this excuse. Well, you're not considering taxes. property taxes. Well, I am considering property taxes. My property tax is $24 a year. I think they're going to go up to $46 this year because we got the tiny house on it now. So, property taxes, $46. I can sell enough eggs to make $46. Just get a couple more chickens. That is not a big deal. Now, what I see people complaining about property tax, you know, they live in the city and they've got huge expenses, huge school costs, huge everything. So they buy a $500,000 or $1 million house, and then they're spending $5,000, $6,000 a year on taxes. Well, that's just unreasonable. If you come out here and spend $46. So I just do not accept this tax thing. Then the argument is, well, when I build a house on there, property taxes are going to go up. Then don't build a house on there. That's what I'm trying to say, is if you spend $500,000 on a house, your house property tax is going to go up. It increased the value of the property. Don't increase the property value. You're living on it. You're not wanting to resell it. So you put a piece of junk house on it like we did. Just a little 200 square foot shed. It goes up a little bit because it increased the value. Now there's shed on it. The other thing is if you're giving up a $500,000 house and you're spending $5,000, $6,000 on property taxes, whatever it is, and you come out here, well, obviously now you're saving $5,000 to $6,000 in property taxes. So the property tax thing is just an excuse, which I think is what most people do, is they're making excuses why they can't do something. I'm not going to tell you how to live off grid in the city because it can't be done. I'm telling you to come out here because this can be done, and it can be done very cheaply. The other argument is well, I can't leave the city, so you need to tell me how to do this in the city, and the only way I know how to do it is prep. Well, you can't do it in the city, just like I said. Don't prep. You're wasting tons of money, and you're saving tons of money out here. Give it up. If you're really concerned about SHTF, if you're renting, a lot of people say I rent. Well, rent, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's up in the $1,000 range. And now you're complaining about the property taxes when you come out here. So what is the difference between $12,000 a year in rent or spending $15,000 in one lump sum on this property and paying $40 in property taxes each year? You're still going to save. In 2 years you'll be making money by saving all that rent. So if you can click that super thanks button down there, I really appreciate it. So if I can inspire you, just do it so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.